Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to today's edition of Intuitive Angling. And man, I really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to watch the video and spend some time with me today. I know there's a bunch of other YouTube channels out there for you guys to watch, and everybody doesn't have just all day to watch YouTube videos. So really appreciate you guys checking out Intuitive Angling here. Guys, today we're going to wade into the controversial topic of eating bass and killing bass and keeping bass. This is one of those hot button topics. A lot of people are sensitive about it, super sensitive about it. And I've got some opinions on this I want to share with you guys, share my point of view on it, and be curious to get your guys' feedback on this, because it's a big topic in fishing today for sure. So also, guys, just a quick thank you out there. I want to extend a big thank you to everybody out there that's taking time on every video to go into my links that I put in the description and use them and bookmark them. And all you guys that are using and bookmarking my Tackle Warehouse link and that Fish the Moment breakdown links and Solar Bat links, you guys are really doing a huge, massive part to support the channel and to keep it on YouTube here. So a big thank you to everybody that's partaking in that. Really appreciate it. Okay, guys, this is there's no doubt this is going to rile some feathers, because every time I talk about eating bass, there's always there's a bunch of sensitive people out there that think that anytime somebody says something about not eating bass, that it's taking away some right that they have to do it. So I understand that, because not everybody's tournament anglers, and not everybody. Some people, they see fish as nothing more than something to be caught and kept and eat. And that's the way it used to be. It's like, prior to when Bassmaster first instituted catch and release, people did not release fish. They kept everything they caught. I mean, I remember we did when I was a kid. People didn't know any better, because at that time you didn't have the fishing pressure. And here's one of the things I want to preface with that when you have this conversation about keeping and eating bass, is this isn't 1960 anymore, guys. It's like, one of the reasons this topic comes up, and one of the reasons there's a lot of adamant defenders about catch and release, like people like myself promote, is that we have a tremendous amount of pressure on the bass these days. It's like bass are the most popular game fish in our lakes across the country. It's not like it was 50 years ago when those fish didn't have pressure. So we have got a completely new dynamic now of a level of fishing pressure that definitely has an impact on the fisheries if people keep and eat the bass. So that's one of the things we sort of have to talk about, getting into this. So I've got a lot of experience with this, guys. I mean, one of the things that I sort of, I want to talk about the actual keep and eat, but I want to talk about a lot of stuff surrounding that. You hear a lot of people talking about, okay, if we don't manage these fisheries, the fish are going to get overpopulated and stunted. You hear that all the time, guys. Fisheries managers talk about it. You hear people use that excuse. I'm calling BS on it, guys. And the reason I do this is from my own personal experience. Now, a lot of you guys know, I've talked about it. I used to have a 40-acre lake of my own that I managed. And also, I'll give you one example, guys. I had a chance to fish over in eastern Kansas one time. There was a farmer over there that I used to quail hunt on, back when I was in my early 20s. And I had a chance. He had a 100-acre lake over there, and he didn't fish. Nobody, he told me that nobody had even fished this lake in 10 years before. So it had zero bass taken out of it for 10 years. Guys, when I went over there, it was a freaking bass heaven full of hogs. You cannot believe how it was just like one of those dream deals. You go over there, and I don't know how many 4 to 6 pound bass we caught. It was full of them, and they were fat, they were healthy, and there had been no no fisheries management on this. There was no you hear wildlife or fish and wildlife managers say, oh, you got to take out 50 bass per acre to maintain the healthy pond. This didn't have it, guys. For 10 years, nobody had these fish had not seen a lure in 10 years, and it was full of hogs, big ones, and they were all healthy. So, and I found the same thing on my own lake, guys. I had the conservation department come in there when I got this lake, and they gave me they shocked the lake, and they gave me their analysis of what I needed to do. And they said, you need to take out like 50 bass per acre per year. And I calculated, and that was like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bass. And I just didn't agree with that. So I went and I started managing my pond from my own experience about what bass need. And as long as bass have food and habitat, the natural predation is going to keep that lake healthy. And I never kept bass out of my pond, hardly ever. I may have kept like 5 a year out of it, something like that, and it was full of giants, full of big ones. No need for that. And that's one of the things that people don't understand when they use that excuse that you got to manage a lake, and you got to, if you don't keep the fish, they're going to get stunted and the little ones are going to take over. That's the biggest myth I've ever heard in fishing, guys. As long as you have habitat, if you've got lots of habitat for the fish, and you've got a big forage base, and you've got natural predation from ospreys and eagles and otters and different type of fish that eat bass, people don't need to keep bass and eat them out of there. Bass have been on this planet for 3 million years. They've managed just fine without us thinking we have to manage them as far as keeping and catch them. I think that is the biggest bunch of bull in fishing that there is, and it's a very prevalent way of thought. And there's probably going to be some fisheries biologists and managers say they don't agree with me on that. That's fine, but I'm telling you from my own experience, and I've got 50 years of it. I didn't get my experience in some university studying fisheries biology. I lived it and breathed it and spent tens of thousands of days on the lake. So that's my university right there. I have not seen it. So that's one aspect of it. Now let's talk about the other aspect of it, about sort of the rights and privileges that people have with it. Another thing in fishing that we have that's sort of messed up right here is that you say, like in the state of Missouri, guys, you can get an annual fishing license in Missouri for $12 for a year if you live in Missouri, and that allows you to keep a limit of 6 bass every day. Now, guys, add up how many. If you're one of those people out there that fish every day, and if you caught your limit of 6 bass every day for 300 days a year, look how many fish that is. That's close to 2,000 fish a year out of that lake for one person. Now you multiply that times hundreds or thousands of people. I'm not saying that everybody's going to catch a limit of bass for 300 days a year, but that $12 license allows people to legally do that. What are you doing there, Tyne? So from that standpoint, we have way too liberal creel limits, guys. We allow too many fish to be caught and kept, and like I said, when you add the fishing pressure, when you add the increased fishing pressure, more and more anglers getting better and better to catching the fish. You've got the delayed mortality that kills more fish than anything, which is bass tournaments. You got the delayed mortality from more and more bass getting killed from anything, is from barrel trauma from guys using live scope. From that standpoint, all the bass that are being killed from live scope and forward-facing sonar and bass tournaments, from that, you don't need to take any fish out. You don't need to take any fish out regardless. There is no way. You take a lake like Table Rock Lake or Lake Lanier in Georgia or Lake Cumberland, there is no way that fishermen have got to intervene to keep a lake healthy by keeping and eating them out of there. You can't tell me that a 50,000 lake with all the natural predation that exists there is not going to manage itself. I do not believe that one iota at all. So from that standpoint, when people try to use the argument as far as keeping and eating bass as there being some type of a good steward and a management of the fisheries, I think that is the biggest myth I have ever heard in fishing. I'll say it, and I'll say it 100 times. I don't care if you're on a Toledo Bend Lake or if you're on a pond, like at my 40-acre pond that I had. If you've got lots of habitat for the fish, and you got a good forage base, and you got natural predation, man is used. It doesn't have anything to do with keeping a fishery healthy. That's just my own personal opinion. So let's talk now about the people that do keep and eat bass, that type of a thing. I understand that there's a lot of people out there that don't have any interest in catch and release. In fact, there's a lot of people out there, guys, that I think they keep and eat bass sort of like to make a point, like they're trying to, they're trying to, screw the bass anglers or something like that try to practice catch and release. It's like, I have seen this, and I've talked to people a lot about the more and more bass anglers practice catch and release and try to educate people towards catch and release, the more they deal their heels in, and the more they kill and keep bass. There's a lot of people out there like that. And a lot of the people I know that keep and eat bass, one of the things that they sort of share in common is that they feel that when they go to the lake, and if they spend $50 or $100 on gas, and they spent hundreds of dollars on fish and tackle, and they've got a boat payment, that they've got to bring something back in order to justify that expense. So they keep and eat bass with that. So that, and I'm not saying somebody is a bad person for doing that. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, that you're just a terrible person if you keep and eat bass. Here's my point on keeping and eating bass. Number one is there's a lot of better eating fish. If you're wanting to eat some fish, you know, you got walleye, you got crappie, you got catfish, you got white bass, you got bluegill. You have all these different species out there that are way more prolific than a largemouth or spotted bass. And by the way, guys, this whole thing about spotted bass being an invasive species and you got to get rid of the spots, I call bullshit on that too. It's like ever since people started keeping and eating more bass out of Table Rock Lake, the spotted bass population sucks at Table Rock anymore. We used to go down there, you know, years ago and catch these big old giant fat spotted bass. You know, there'd be tons of them out there. And the more people started keeping and eating those spotted bass, the less spotted bass you caught, and the less you know, quality of fish out there. So from that standpoint, I just don't agree with that. But anyway, there's a lot of other better eating fish out there, and sometimes they're easier to catch. And so I don't quite understand why people, when you have all these other fish options to catch, why they continue to keep and eat largemouth bass. But anyway, you know, aside from that, it's like one of the things that I think that I think one of the big dilemmas that we have here is that it's a perception, it's a worldview out there, because, you know, there is probably, I'm going to guess 25 to 30% of the bass fishing public out there that they are going to keep and eat bass, and they get pissed if you try to tell them not to keep and eat bass. They think you're infringing on their rights or something out there. I'm not infringing anyone's rights. If you want to keep and eat bass, you have the right to do that. All I'm trying to say is that it doesn't hurt to take a step back and say, look, it's like we have got so many people fishing these lakes, and these bass get so much fishing pressure out there. It's like if you enjoy catching bass and you like to see that 4-pound bass blow that Zara spook out of the water, the value of seeing that bass blow that topwater out of the water, or the value of you pitching that jig into by a dock piling and see your line tick and you set the hook and you got a 4-pound bass, the value of that experience far outweighs you eating a bass. It's like once you eat a 4-pound bass, you're never going to catch it again. You're never going to see that. You're never going to experience that excitement of that fish going up again. And on top of that, do you know the odds that it takes for a bass to even get to 2 pounds? They have to overcome millions of obstacles. They have a 1 in a million chance to even reach 2 pounds. So when bass get 2, 3, 4 pounds, you know, they're special. I mean, it's like, I sort of have a reverence for them a little bit, because it's so fun to catch them, and it's so healing and therapeutic to catch them, that if I keep one and eat it, I sort of feel bad. And I've kept them before, guys. I've kept an 8 bass before. And I can tell you right now that they don't taste as good, and I don't feel as good about myself, and I know that I'm never going to catch that fish again. So this is just one of those things out there that's it's a very difficult topic to talk about, because you're going to make a lot of people mad. I'll make a bunch of people mad doing this video, even though I'm trying to be unbiased about it. I'm trying to present some facts the way I've seen them out there. But nevertheless, you know, we have that element, and I don't know what there really is to do about it. Like I said, it's, you know, the people that keep and eat bass, you know, the ones that I've met, a lot of them have an attitude. They do. They got an attitude that, by God, I'm going to keep and eat a bass. And if you tell me that I can't, and if you tell me that I should throw that fish back, I'm going to keep twice as many bass. I've heard them say that. They've said that to me before. And that's not the right way to look at it. We have got to be good stewards and we've got to be good conservationists. And the reality of the situation, like I said, it's not 1950 anymore, guys. It's 2024. We live in a different world. And if somebody values the intrinsic therapeutic healing value of catching fish and getting those fish to bite, I think it's just a good thing to practice catch and release. Like I said, there's a lot of other fish out there to catch. I'll be more, if you're one of those people out there that keep and eat bass, guys, I'll be more than happy to tell you every secret that I know about catching walleye, crappie, white bass, catfish, and you can eat all those you want. But like I said, I'm not saying somebody's a bad person for keeping and eating bass. They have a right to do that. All I'm saying is that the research and the study and my experiences that I've had is the fisheries managers for a lot of these lakes out there, they tend to see fisheries and they tend to see lakes as simply like resources for people to use and exploit to some extent. And keeping and catching fish is part of that. And my experience just does not line up with what they've seen there. And I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of blowback on that, but that's just what I've seen from my own personal experience. So bottom line, guys, is like I said, if you want to keep and eat bass, that's your right to do it. Me or nobody else is going to change your mind or tell you can't do it. You know, as long as you're staying within the law, as long as you're a licensed anglers and follow the state laws, you can do whatever people want to with that. But it's at the same time, I think a lot of people have to take a step back and say, okay, what is this going to do? You know, what's that going to do to my grandkids? You know, if I'm one of those guys out there that keeps as many bass as I can, are my grandkids 50 years from now going to have any type of fishing if I keep doing that and everybody else around me keeps doing that? So it's a tough one, man. There's nothing really easy about that. So I just wanted to give you guys my 2 cents on that. Like I said, it's a hot button topic. You know, a lot of bass anglers out there, they wouldn't think about keeping a bass. It's all catch and release. And I'm not coming from that. I'm not coming from this as a tournament angler. Like, you know, I don't want somebody to keep bass because that's more fish to be caught in a tournament. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the long-term sustainability of the fishery and the challenges we have, you know, with that, which include, you know, the tournaments, the delayed mortality from technology, you know, everything else that comes with it, point source pollution, other things, largemouth bass virus and all that. Anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think. Throw me your 2 cents worth, and we'll talk later.